So, suggested ways to get yourself started when to implement this into your coaching session is, first off, have the athletes assess themselves against the criteria. You could give yourself a list. For example, rugby have like 3 different levels that you know your athletes are at, and within those levels, different skills. For example, level 1 might be, if you have level 1, 3 pop passes in a game using a directional wrist flick. Level 2s, maybe then 3 spin passes using a wide leg base and directed shoulder action. And then you can see how we would build through the levels. So therefore, your athletes then know that if they can perform 3 pop passes or 3 spin passes, if they can't perform the spin passes with the wide leg base and directed shoulder movement, then maybe they're still at level 1. You can get them to assess themselves and identify how they can then improve. So, and this is where then you come in. So during your session, when they've assessed themselves, you can then provide feedback in ways to improve. Now this is going to be a lot easier if you know where the participants have assessed themselves, and you can provide feedback at different levels to meet their needs. So you've got your low ability who are at level 1, and you know what to say to them, and then you might have your high who are at level 2, and then you can look to challenge them further rather than going back to the pop passes, because they're already above that. So once again, it makes it a lot easier for you as the coach in order to meet their needs as within your session. So now it is a skill to be able to peer assess, and being able to self-assess is essential before actually starting it, because they've become very familiar with the process, they know how it works, and then they can apply that to their colleagues. Now this peer assessment, if we had to pick a theory of learning, we'd be able to link that to Vygotsky, because anything that involves groups and learning, we can link to Vygotsky's social cultural learning theory. We learn through being social. But we have to set ground rules, because you'll often find with students that they, or participants or players, especially young people, they can be quite judgmental and quite mean. So you have to make sure that your discussion, or what you focus on, relates only to the success criteria. So this could be the focus of your lesson, such as performing a spin pass in rugby. So you could say, can you give me feedback on your partner's wrist action or wide leg base? Are they performing it? How wide is their stance? How much do they flick their wrist? Where are their hands placed on the ball? So being able to give that focus is very important. I just want to have a think about that question in the red there. That's something we'll talk about a bit more in lesson. And this last bit here is about picking who you go to be with each other. For example, in a safe environment, you may have 2 friends who may be quite boisterous but get a lot done and spark off each other. But in a quite dangerous environment, such as in gymnastics or in a swimming pool, you might want to place athletes with companions or peers who may be more safe. Okay, so now when your athletes don't tend to meet the criteria or are struggling along their pathway because of their assessment, here's some tips you can do. So if you want to pause this, have a quick read. Now the first 2 are quite easy, so you might just go back a little bit, start from the beginning, build them back up from perhaps the pop pass to the spin pass. Check with their buddy, or maybe go check with a different partner. Maybe it's not working out too well with one partner and they need to go learn from a more knowledgeable other. Get the demo out, have a demo, and then that then itself links into visual learners, V for visual. Or they could be reading out criteria out loud if they've got a peer assessment sheet with the teaching points on it. Also, maybe give them the task of finding more information. perhaps YouTube or watching a football match, or maybe speaking to their coach, to another coach. All different ways that they can find more information and get themselves back to finding their path along the assessment for learning. So I just want you to pause this and have a quick look. And this is very similar to what we've talked about. And the main thing here is we see collaborate, consult and discuss. So when organising it, it's still very much rooted in Vygotsky. Again, learning from others, speaking and opening collaborative dialogue. And not only this, but it'll empower your athletes. You'll be able to collaborate with your peers, and also it makes sure that they're on board and understand what's the point of them doing self and peer assessment. And these things here, something we've already talked about. And this bit here, give feedback and coaching, is where you can use your knowledge and you can become the more knowledgeable other, showing how a participant needs to advance perhaps to the next level or the next set of criteria within their skills. So now you may have seen this, I've used it before, 2 stars and a wish or 2 ticks and a wish, remembering to focus on specific criteria, something that we did in one of our last practicals where we combined 2 different focuses that we've covered in the last 7 weeks. Self-assessment on a continuum, so your athletes go and place themselves on a spectrum where they think they are in regards to their skill levels. Thumbs up, thumbs down, something I sort of do. I use high fives or shaky hand or a fist to give an idea about where your athletes are and maybe who needs more support and maybe who needs to be challenged a little bit more. Next, traffic lights. Something that I like to do is have red, yellow and green cones, maybe linked to different sets of criteria, or how much they understand a task, or how many teaching points they can think of regarding a specific skill. For example, if I ask someone to name 5 teaching points of the sprint start, and if you can only name 3, you might be yellow. If you can only name 2 or less, you might be red. And then what I would make sure I do was do this again at the end of the session. That way the participants can see if learning has actually taken place. You can also pair them up with a partner, so at the end, if they're struggling to think of teaching points, they can relate to their partner, use their MKO, and advance up the traffic lights. They can actually move perhaps from yellow to green, which is very empowering for the students or the participants. Okay, and one more thing, you could put in 3, 2, 1, include 3 things they've learned, such as teaching points, 2 questions about, could be anything, perhaps using their skills they've learned in a game, when would they use the pop pass, when would they use the spin pass, or maybe 1 insight. If we perform a quick switch, followed by a quick pop pass and touch rugby, will we gain more success than just trying to step past the opponent? And then you can also use tools such as mini whiteboards for them to evaluate or come up with their 3, 2, 1. Okay, so there's just some references for you. You want to pause, maybe you can look those guys up. Thank you for taking the time to go through this video, and I look forward to seeing you in class. Thank you.